Hey Claire, I really miss you. Are they actually on?
Yell. Say. Now you're not saying it. Too late. Okay. Civil liberties. Okay, that is the whole chapter. Now, a big part of the unit is the difference between liberties and civil rights. Civil rights is an easy one to think of because what happened in the 60s that you learned about in U.S. history? The Civil Rights Movement, which was mainly about African American and minority rights. Civil liberties are your rights because you're an American that the government can't take away from you. So this is from the Declaration. This is from the Constitution. Then, of course, the Bill of Rights are added, but there are certain rights that protect you from the government going too far. Okay, now we're going to go through some of the individual liberties of the Constitution. And there were three specifically that were back in the second week of the year that talk about the protections from the government doing too much, all dealing with legal stuff. There was Latin, ex post facto, habeas corpus, and bills of attainder. So what does it mean for habeas corpus? It just forces you to be told why you're being held. You can't be held by the police, by a court, whatever, without knowing why. So, writ of habeas corpus. Then, the next one, ex post facto, bills of attainder. Remember the ex post facto piece. That's a law that's created. They can't go back and punish people for what they broke 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. So it's different than the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah, and that's the thing. These are in the real Constitution. Okay, what we learned about last week were the amendments. So the amendments are just the additions. Okay, the additions to these. Now, bills of attainder. A bill of attainder would be a law that tells the police to go arrest somebody and put them in prison. Meaning, what doesn't somebody who's accused of a crime have? It means they don't have a trial. So, like you just brought up the Fifth Amendment, that is also part of the Sixth Amendment. So all the amendments did with those is they kind of clarified some things. And we have went through these. You had your quiz on them. You guys, I know it was just the amendments, but I want to kind of stress to you, that is something that you put in time. So I think we had mainly just 13s, 14s, and 15 out of 15. That's pretty good because it took your time. So the amendments, we went through the first, RAPS, the second, the guns. And that is important for you as we look at the Supreme Court cases. What was the amendment? What was the part of the Constitution that addresses the Supreme Court cases that we're going to talk about today and then tomorrow?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you recording right now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so dope.
Where did you not hear that part of the conversation when everybody was given?
That's why I was so confused about
No.
Facebook.
All right. Then the end. Again, you guys have these, right? You had the cheat sheet. I gave you the cheat sheet. Just the specifics there listed for you, what they are. And number 7 is a tort, right? If it's a tort, that is a lawsuit. That's money. Yeah. What?
Oh, I didn't know.
A tort is a lawsuit. It's a crime means you have a criminal case. A tort means you have a civil case. So that's what it is. Yeah.
Go back to that last one.
That is right there. The eminent domain. That's what you're asking about. That's just the name of what it means where the government can't take your property. You have exclusive rights to that property, and the government can't just take it away. Okay, now, selective incorporation came from an additional amendment. Because for a long time, who did the Bill of Rights apply to? Only what level? Only the federal. So how did it go under the states? What amendment was that? Nope. It was near the Civil War. 14th. The 14th. So now states have to follow the Bill of Rights. But we called it selective for a reason. And it was selective because do they have to follow all the Bill of Rights? Or how do they know they have to follow the Bill of Rights? And the only way that they know they have to follow the Bill of Rights is if they're told to from the Supreme Court. So these are the clauses that are really important from the 14th Amendment for us. You have privileges and immunities, due process, and equal protection. The one that we are focused on is due process. Due process prohibits abuse of life, liberty, or property of any citizen, states no state. This is about the Bill of Rights. That is the one that they use to transfer the Bill of Rights onto the states. So a lot of the cases that we'll talk about, you'll see that it applies to states who violated somebody's civil liberties. This one, equal protection under the law, all citizens, right? That is the basis of next chapter because it talks about African Americans, it talks about women, talks about children. The Constitution applies to all citizens equally. So when we get to that chapter with African Americans, with homosexuals, gay marriage was from the Equal Protection Clause. That was what the Supreme Court looked at with that. All right, so most of the time it's going to come from the Supreme Court and how they interpret stuff, but once in a while we do see legislative action. That means laws that are made to try to protect somebody's liberties and stuff like that. Okay, now we get into the actual amendments. Free speech, what amendment are we talking about? First. Now, you can say pretty much whatever you want in this country and get away with it. You can talk bad about somebody, you can have hate speech, but there are some limitations, and they come from this. These are the only limitations here. For what?
Why do I get in trouble, like, if I talk bad about somebody at school?
Now, that is a big part of civil liberties. And how it fits into the First Amendment. The First Amendment almost exclusively is the preferred position of the government. That means that it's the most important right that you are protected with by the Constitution, unless you're in places where it's not the most important. So what do you think the preferred position, meaning the most important part of our lives or our government in school is? What is the most important right that you guys have while you're in school? Right to an education. Right to education and safety. So because of those two things, free speech kind of takes a back seat, and it isn't the preferred position. But we'll go through these. The threat to national security. What does it mean to be liable? Obscenities and symbolic speech. Those are things where you can be limited, and the government can punish you for those things. And that's how it's going to have to be important that you think about it with how the government reacts to this. So, starting with order, okay? First one was a threat to national security. Okay, a threat to national security means a threat to national security. So, think about it. Can we say, you know what? This place is bad. We need to get a new principal. Can we say that? Is that free speech? Yes. That is protected by free speech because it's abstract. We should go to the White House and set up a dictatorship for our country.
You can say it, but I mean...
That's a lot different than saying, all right, it's time. You, and you. Get your guns. Come with me. We're going to go take back the White House. That is, look at the difference. You have abstract, it should happen, and then, holy crap, you just made a plan. Okay, so that's a lot different. That's a lot different than the idea of it. Okay, our first case now. Our first case is Schneck versus the U.S. Okay, free speech. You get to say what you want. Schneck was sending out letters trying to get people to resist the draft. Is that a threat to national security?
Yes.
Yes, that is a threat to national security because what is the point of the draft? To have soldiers, to have a national security. So if you look at the time, this was during World War I, the draft was happening. Schneck tried to get people to stop joining or entering the draft. The court ruled that was perfectly acceptable for him to be punished for it because it was a clear and present danger. And those are the words that they use. It's a test. It's a measurement. They want consistency. So it was clear. Was it clear that urging people to resist the draft was a threat to national security? That's pretty dang clear. Then was it present? The draft is only used when we're fighting somebody. So that is a very present concern. So that's the standard they try to use. And that's what tests mean. The Supreme Court has a case now that they have to deal with national security. So they want consistency. And what they ruled was it does create clear and present danger. so Schneck could be punished. So as you're going through these cases, you don't have to write these word for word, by the way. Make sure that you just have like the topic. What is the topic in Schneck? Urge people to resist the draft. The ruling in the case, you can be punished for that because it's clear and present danger. Something like that. Just something quick and to the point for what the case was. Okay, let's keep going now. Libel and slander. These are a part of vocabulary. So really quickly, you can make a note of this. Libel and slander are both defamation, meaning you're trying to hurt somebody's reputation by spreading rumors about them. Okay, so for you to keep them separate, libel, what did I say it was called? It's called defamation.
So that's like libel is like girls in high school.
No, not so much, because this is key. Circle it, make the difference, whatever in your head. Libel starts with an L. L is for letters. This is written.
So
Libel is written. It's written, which would mean a newspaper. A newspaper, something on the internet, something that is printed is libel. Okay? Slander, on the other hand, is spoken. Spoken. That's girls in high school. So it is slander. It's S.
Tweeting about Mallory and saying
Yes.
her race.
And which one is easier to be punished for? Libel, because there's the record of it. I mean, there are letters of it. That's the point. But this is also very difficult to do because Trump, for instance, Obama, Bush, and now I'm going to bring in other people like Kardashians, athletes. What is the nature of their life to begin with? Social media, drama, public. The difficulties to prove that somebody created a story that was sort of based in fact for an athlete is extremely hard. But for us, for our level of society, which I mean, I'm not trying to downplay anybody's role in society, but I also don't have 1 million followers right now. It's much easier for the speech to be limited if it impacts us as opposed to celebrities. Okay, now we're getting into symbolic speech. Can you be punished for symbolic speech?
So is that like not really what they're saying?
Kind of.
Like burning the flag.
Yeah.
Can you be punished for burning the flag?
Wait, we talked about this. Hold on.
It's Texas version, yeah.
Texas versus Johnson.
Yeah.
I feel like they can't get in trouble today.
The law said that you cannot burn the American, and we'll go through it, but you cannot wear it or burn it, sorry, and it's an additional fine.
Oh, so he did it.
He got in trouble for burning the flag, but then also got the additional fine. The additional fine is unconstitutional. It can't be specific because it was the flag. There's not like an additional.
Burning the flag is legal.
Well, no. Burning the flag, a law about burning the flag is unconstitutional. You can get in trouble for burning stuff in public, littering, probably with the ashes, probably, public issues for doing something in public, disturbing the peace, something, but not because it is specific to the flag.
Anything you burn.
Yeah, it'd be the same as if you burned the Michigan flag in public. There'd be no difference in terms of how much you'd be punished. So the punishment can happen, but it can't be because it was the American flag. The only thing to get punished for is you littered, you were trespassing on somebody's property, maybe vandalism, for like leaving ashes on the sidewalk or something.
So if you do it at your own house, you're fine.
Yeah, if you burn the American flag in your backyard, you obviously can't be punished for it because it's your property. But according to that Texas law, what they try to say is no matter where you burned it, you could be punished for it.
What about burning leaves? Like what? I mean,
Yeah, that's a little bit of burn bans for leaves and stuff like that, which means that there are impacts of the smoke. So they put in these restrictions of what time or in what days really. And those are more civil issues with like your neighbor, because if I have a fire, the smoke goes onto my neighbor's property. Technically, I'm invading their right to enjoy their property, but that's person to person as opposed to the government. Yeah, Harper.
At a protest or rally, someone, let's say, I don't think this would happen, but they were burning the flag. Can't they say that they were protected because of the First Amendment?
Well, how about we wait until there's a really good case that somebody got in trouble for, and we'll talk about what happened in that, and that might clear up like what your thoughts are related to getting in trouble or not. All right, another time that you can be limited is obscenities. You can't just walk around town with porn, like holding up the poster or something like that.
Oh, more?
Yeah, you can't do that. That's obscenity. So
Dang it.
laws can be made that restrict your right. Yeah, a lot of people have thought about it, right? Some stuff that can happen though is the zoning. Like there can be zoning laws. Like let's say there was a strip club coming in, or what is that place called? No, not Cat. Lions Den. There can be zoning laws that say like it cannot be within 5,000 feet of a high school or something like that. I don't.
If I'm thinking of the right one.
No, I'm saying a city can come up with those laws.
Like in Paris? Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Our case. Can you symbolic speech anything you want in school? Can you wear whatever you want in school? No. But you are protected in a lot of ways. So if you wanted to protest a policy of the school, could you wear like an armband that was red that protested the tardy policy?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not disrupting anything. Just because you have a complaint doesn't mean that it's disrupting the learning process. So, black armbands. 3 kids. Mary Beth Tinker is the one who became famous for it, Tinker versus Des Moines, but they got suspended. All they did was they wore black armbands protesting the Vietnam War. Yeah, it made it all the way up. But there's a lot of motivation to get stuff to go to the Supreme Court. But this is a local school district, right? So if it goes to the Supreme Court, it's a local, meaning it's state, basically. That means this amendment was incorporated onto the states now. So you guys are protected. The school, we cannot punish you for symbolic speech, for what you wear, unless it creates a big disruption, meaning we can show that it does. Do black armbands, red armbands, whatever, T-shirts, do they really create a disruption? No. And I'm not concerned with whether you agree with parts of the dress code or not, but that is why we're able to have a dress code. I know that you guys disagree with parts of it, and I can disagree with parts of it too. We're not arguing the merits of the individual pieces, but that is why the school is able to have a dress code that, technically limits your free speech.
So wait, did they get in trouble?
What they ruled is schools cannot punish you for it. So they took their suspension off their record. And what about this though? There's a big difference between black armbands protesting it and armbands that, let's say they have a picture of a dead Vietnamese baby on it.
A what?
A dead Vietnamese baby.
Oh, okay.
That would be a disruption. That would be a substantial interference. I think if people walked in with pictures of dead babies, that'd be a disruption to the learning process. So that is where this happened.
Isn't that what happened outside of our school a couple years ago? Someone was holding up.
The abortion guy? Yeah, he got shot. The guy who shot him had problems with him, and then
Wait.
the other person they shot.
He got shot outside our school?
Yeah, right across the street here.
Oh, awesome.
This was 2009.
Yeah, that was
2009. It was that was a pretty scary, and not for me, it was really weird. So being up here, it wasn't scary because we had nothing to do with it. It was off school property. It happened. Some students were right there. Some students tried to go help the guy and stuff. But in school, we just went about our day, right? So I was getting texts from all my family and stuff. Apparently it became really big news really quickly.
Yeah.
We're fine, it's not really too bad.
Is this on
But
the
it
paper?
was scary. No, this is not on your paper. This is just a case talking about another test. It's called the Miller test. Miller versus California. We're talking about obscenities. Can you send pornography through the mail?
No. Apparently. I don't know. I've never done it.
Yeah.
Yes, they could because it was like if you had a subscription. If you had a subscription to a pornographic magazine or something like that. But what the deal was it created a Miller test. When can things be banned by a school or a city or whatever? And this is what they came up with. They came up with a Miller test. So just like the clear and present danger test, they came up with the Miller test. Is there a prurient interest in sex? Does it show offensive sexual conduct? And does it lack serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value? You guys have all had biology. You know that there's nudity that goes along with biology, talking about the organs and everything. That has Scientific value. You read a book that talks about it. Literary value. Naked girls on drawings. Those are not obscene, meaning they would not be able to be restricted there. Okay, the case that you guys were talking about, though, was this. Texas versus Johnson. And right here, I just want you to look at it. This does not say that you can burn the American flag. What it says is the Constitution does not prevent you from doing it. So it's not your action, okay? It's a law that violates the Constitution. So this law, like we talked about, said that in Texas you cannot burn the American flag. You cannot destroy the American flag, I think was actually all it said. So this guy burns it. He gets a ticket, gets charged with vandalism of that, and the Supreme Court said, look, you can charge him with vandalism, you can charge him with disturbing the peace, but you can't charge him with, and it was the American flag. That violates his free speech. So the law itself violated this free speech. Now, on the flip side, the other case that's on here, the draft card. This was in the, I think the case entered the Supreme Court in the 20s. Why would this be upheld? I mean, you're burning the American flag or you're burning a draft card. I mean, both symbols of the United States, right? Why can the government make a law that says you can't burn your draft card?
National security.
That's a national security threat. So just like Schneck, it's a national security threat. Clear and present danger with burning your draft cards. I think I probably have one, but now it's so electronic. I don't know. Has anybody turned 18 recently? I know we don't. Did you get a draft card when you registered? You still had? You got it?
Yeah.
So apparently I have it probably somewhere, but it's my number that says I'm registered for the draft. So if there is a draft and I get called, so burning it would be a clear and present danger. Okay, another one. Schools. Bong hits for Jesus. So, bong hits for Jesus. Now, these guys are at a parade. But the parade was during the school day. So what happened was they were let out because this was a pretty big event. It was the Olympic torch relay. It was running through their town. So they released the students at, let's say, 1 o'clock and said, everybody, you have the right to go downtown and watch the Olympic torch. So they're there, and the kids who hold up the sign get suspended for it. Should the school be able to suspend somebody for their speech like that when they're not on school property? I'm getting heads yes and heads no. What are they there as? What are they as? They're there as what? They are there during the school day as students. While it was an option to go or not, they were released from school. And by being released from school, they were under the school's, supervision. If they would have went home, they could have, but the expectation was you're released to go here. So they go here, they hold up the sign, and what is important about this phrase here? What are they advocating for?
Right? They're using some kind of no, but it's their freedom of speech because if they're using the religious.
Saying it was religion?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Bong hits for Jesus.
how about Jesus would legalize pot? Is there a difference between that and bong hits for Jesus? What is the difference between Jesus would legalize pot? There are a lot of people who are in favor of legalizing pot, we're in favor of it, that don't smoke pot. This is talking about using an illegal drug.
Jesus using an illegal.
Jesus. Yeah, it's just the wording.
That they're using it, and that's why.
Yes.
they got in trouble.
And it was on school property, or not school property. It was during a school event, even though it was the parade. So if you guys went to a basketball game, a football game, and you were drunk, you got into a fight, you stole something while you were there, you could be punished by the school because it was a school event. So there we go.
But if they release the kids,
Yeah,
that's what it's. Okay, they
That is
release
a hard
the
part of
kids,
it, yep.
now, Is it, and if, what's the difference if they went and hauled that up at home rather than are they in school custody or not?
They were, I guess, in the school's care, not necessarily their custody, like they were in control of them. But
when we went to beach,
it would-
when we were touring, we're still in the school.
Yeah, so let's say somebody down at the Florida right now.
So this would count as like a field trip.
Yes, yeah, that would be like a field trip. Yeah, that would have been like a field trip. And if they chose not to go, that was fine. They just got dismissed anyway and went home. Is that what you were kind of wondering?
Yeah.
If it was a field trip?
On hits for Jesus.
Bong hits for Jesus. Okay, commercial speech. Now, regulating the airwaves. We've actually talked about these, but the real deal is the FCC in charge of media. Now, if you watch any ball game, any awards show, anything that's live, what do you know about it being live? It's on delay.
Yeah.
It's on delay, so if they need to edit it,
When I'm
they
watching
can.
my brother, and all of a sudden it switches to a different camera,
Yep.
and then we're just sitting there for 2 seconds, and then it comes back.
Yep.
It says something.
It says something inappropriate, maybe nudity or something like that, but it can be regulated by the FCC. So it's a little restricted there with free speech. But if you guys have Netflix, that's not really regulated by if you've watched shows on that, you'll notice they are not edited.
No.
So there we go. Now these are the two cases we've talked about. McConnell versus the FCC and Citizens United. They are both dealing with the FEC, and the FEC focuses on what? Federal Elections Commission. Federal Election Commission. So if you donate money and you want to impact an election, you are a little restricted with your free speech. Because if you give it to a candidate, they have to report it, which means it is hard money. And then there's the bashing of the other candidates. But if you don't connect it to a candidate, if you just have an ad out there, that would be the unlimited amounts as long as it isn't specifically connected with a candidate. So you have some freedom, but it is still a form of speech that is regulated.
Like if you gave money to Trump, and you made an ad that said like, screw Hillary, vote for Trump, that's not allowed. But if you just said, screw Hillary,
Yeah,
that's
yep.
allowed.
That would be okay. I know it's stupid, but yeah, you can say that as long as it doesn't go specific to the name. Okay, some media stuff still. All right, media, so newspapers, TV, really, reporting. And it's called prior restraint. Now, prior restraint is censoring, meaning that they prevent the newspaper from releasing it, which is in the word, right? Prior restraint, which means, what does prior mean? Before, and restraint means you stop them, you restrict them. So prior restraint doesn't really happen. There are only a few times where newspapers have been stopped before they publish something. So most of the time, if it's bad, they just get punished afterward. It's really, really difficult to.
That's post-restraint.
That would be post restriction. Actually, it'd be post punishment, wouldn't it? Because it's not stopped.
Yeah.
But good job,
They
Mallory.
actually stopped printing them.
Yeah, they probably did. They probably would have stopped. Okay, so here's the case that addresses that. The Pentagon Papers. Huge classified documents about Vietnam. And the New York Times and the Washington Post get a hold of them. How do you think they got a hold of them? Yeah, somebody leaked them out, a whistleblower or something like that. They leaked them out to the New York Times and the Washington Post, two newspapers. So they're going to release them in the newspaper. And what did the government try to issue to them? Censor it. And what is the word?
Restraint.
Prior restraint. They tried to stop the New York Times from publishing them. The Supreme Court said, could the government stop them from publishing it? No. No, they couldn't, because the First Amendment. It wasn't a clear and present danger. It could have been a danger, right? I mean, this is about Vietnam. We're currently, at this point, they were fighting for like 6 years. It could have been a danger, but it wasn't clear. And, you could say that it was present because we were at war with them or in a conflict, whatever. But it wasn't an absolute. So the Supreme Court ruled that the government was not going to be able to stop them, so the publication was able to go through. Yeah.
What's the threatened national security bill?
Threatening national security, and that's they try to use that measurement as best they can. And there's a religion one coming up too with as best you can, a test, clear and present. What they argued was it was not immediately clear what the danger would be for releasing the Pentagon Papers. So because of that, the Supreme Court said they had to allow it. Okay, on to assembly now. Still on the First Amendment. I don't know if you've realized it, but there's a lot to it. So, freedom of assembly. We're on our RAPS, religion, assemble, petition, press, and speech. We're on the A. Can you assemble? It's protected. What does that mean, though, that you are able to assemble? So can you, if you wanted, go to Owasso and ask for a parade?
Sure.
Yes, because they allow other people to do it. They allow other people to hold the parade, so you can go as well. Now, with that in your head, who does that mean can go have a parade in Owasso if they want? Anybody. The KKK, maybe a group of Nazis.
Me.
Mallory. I was kind of looking more for hate groups. I guess I didn't know
I mean, I'm not.
if you consider yourself a hate group. But that's the idea. If you allow one group to assemble, everybody has to be allowed to assemble. There would have to be a very, very, very good reason why Owasso doesn't allow parades, and then that law would have to apply to everyone. As soon as you open the door for something, you have to open the door for everything. You have to open the door for everything. Okay, let's take a look then at this. Now, what happened here? Skokie, Illinois, huge Jewish population. So if you're going to hold a parade in Skokie, Illinois and tick some people off, what type of group would choose Skokie? Nazis. That's what they are. The Nazi Party of America versus Skokie. So if you guys were to go back and you look at where the KKK holds rallies, where Nazis hold rallies, they do it in places that get attention. You know, the Westboro Baptist Church. You remember talking about them?
Yeah.
Why do they choose military funerals? They get attention. And the Supreme Court has said they have the right to do that. Why? Because other people have the right to be there too. Not in the funeral, but in the perimeter of it. So here, what they wanted to do, Skokie did this, is they said that if you have the parade, you cannot display your swastikas and you cannot display your uniforms. What do you think the Supreme Court said?
Violation of freedom of speech.
That violates their rights for free speech, their right to assemble. So, prohibiting the Nazis from wearing swastikas violated the First Amendment. So that law that said they could not, or that ruling, the injunction, whatever, that said they could not wear the swastikas or the uniforms, it violated their free speech. Because, and this is sad, whatever you want to think of it, Nazis, the KKK, other hate groups, like the Westboro Baptist Church, they are extremely well versed in what they can and cannot say.
Yeah, I feel like the people that do wrong know the rules better than people that
That's
do.
absolutely right. They do know the rules.
Because they want to be like, well, this says here that you can.
Yep. And the difference is they will not tell anybody to cause violence. They'll just talk really in an abstract way about the group that they are trying to hate. So they are not trying to incite a riot. They're just using hate speech. Not fighting speech, just hate speech. Okay, now this is the one that Harper asked about, like the flag thing. RAV versus City of St. Paul. So a lot to this. Really what happened for the background is they had a burning cross in someone's yard, a black family, and then they got arrested for it. Okay, now, before we talk about what happened, if you go to somebody's house in Owasso, I don't care if they're black or white or Hispanic or whatever, if you put something in their yard and set it on fire, are you going to get in trouble for it?
Yes.
For what? Yes?
Endangering the
Okay, vandalism. Trespassing.
disturbing peace.
Disturbing the peace.
Yeah.
Probably some form of harassment, right? But you're not going to then have an additional charge of, like the flag, and it was a hate symbol. So that is how this case developed. At no point do I want you to think that, oh, it's all right, this guy got away with burning a cross in a black family's yard. That's not what happened. But the law said that if it was a hate symbol, hate speech, bias motivated for any action, that it was an additional charge. I think it was like a huge misdemeanor, like time in jail misdemeanor. So the kid, it was a kid, that's why it's RAV, to try to protect the kid, so they use initials. They tried to protect his identity, and because it is a symbol, a hate symbol, he cannot be charged with a crime that says, and you displayed a hate symbol. The dude was charged with vandalism, with harassment, with trespassing, but there was no additional charge of, and it was a symbol of hate. That violates the Constitution. Those laws that try to target specific symbols are violations of the Constitution. Jacob, did you have a question? You good? All right, so I don't know if that kind of helps you, Harper, like with the protest type thing, but that's kind of the idea there. All right, let's switch gears to religion now. We'll get through, I want to get through at least the free exercise, and maybe we'll get through the a little bit of the establishment too. But this is your First Amendment, part of religion. Now, these are two clauses. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Two clauses. What do you think this clause is called? The Establishment Clause. What do you think this clause is called? The Free Exercise Clause. Two different views of how the government cannot limit religion. Okay? Two different views for that. So the first case, did anybody go through the cases? Do you know this one? Did you make it this far? Okay, so we're doing free exercise first. And free exercise, you can worship as you please. You can believe whatever you want. That is a part of free exercise. And sometimes that means that what you do, some of your practices, are also backed up by the free exercise.
Like the
Praying, believing in whatever you want, really. You could believe in any part of religion you want. You can really, whatever. That's what worship means. But because a practice can impact others, that's where sometimes it might be restricted. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. So the first case is the Church of Lukumi Babalu I versus the city of Hialeah.
They actually have to say
Hialeah, yeah.
it. No.
Lukumi Babalu I. Yeah.
Okay.
Hialeah is a city outside of Miami. It's a suburb. What does Miami have a huge population of, just in general?
Old people.
Not old people. Well, they do.
White people.
Not white people. Immigrants from the Caribbean islands, mainly in South America. So this church is an Afro-Caribbean religion. And a part of what they believed in was, going back to this worship side, a part of what they believed in was they worshiped that animal sacrifices were a part of their religion. Okay? So they move into Hialeah. And Hialeah makes a law banning animal sacrifices. So Hialeah made a law that banned animal sacrifices. Does that violate the church's First Amendment free exercise rights? Yes or no? Yes. Why? What?
Because it doesn't have any direct effect to like people outside of the church.
Okay, outside the church.
What are they killing? Are they killing
Smoke.
What if they killed someone's dog? Like,
Yeah.
Well, that's
Okay.
what are they killing? Do you
That's-
have any-
That's important too. What do you think, Jacob? It is free exercise. This is a free exercise issue. But the key here is, who was the law about? The church alone.
Because I don't think anyone else was.
Nobody else was sacrificing animals,
So they
but
don't make it specific.
they were killing animals with rat traps, with
Alligator guns.
So because of that,
What do you call it?
food, pest control, because of that reason, things in Hialeah were killed. Chickens for food. If they sacrificed a chicken, that's no different in the eyes of the law than if you kill a chicken for food. What they came up with was a law that specifically targeted the church, so it was a violation of their First Amendment rights. The city could not have a law that was specific just to them. Now, on the same idea, what if they move in and they believe that sacrificing toddlers, sacrificing kids is a part of their religion? Can they believe that?
No.
No.
Yes, they can believe that.
It, but they can't.
Can the city make a law about killing kids.
Yes, because you don't get kill kids.
They already have it. That's the difference. The law already says you can't kill kids. It doesn't say as a part of your sacrifice. That's not important.
Something about their Ninth Amendment.
Harper, they could try.
What if they're killing kids from that group? And
Ew,
they're-
no.
I'm trying
It
to
would
think
still
of
be.
how-
It would still be. Okay, so how about this one?
Even-
That would still be that you could still be punished for that. The law would be okay to charge you with murder in that case. So polygamy was a very common part of the Mormon Church in the 1800s. Now, polygamy is illegal in the country. It has been illegal. It was illegal. So when Mormons started to be punished for polygamy, that's having more than one wife. That's polygamy. When the Mormons started to be punished for it, being arrested, they filed a lawsuit and it went to the Supreme Court. What did the Supreme Court say about that law?
Didn't they say because it was already happening?
It was already a law. It was already going on.
Yeah.
So it was fine. The Mormon Church could be punished. That was okay. That law did not violate their free exercise because it was already in existence before they started this practice.
So just to be clear, if there's already a law about it, then like churches can't come up with new practices. But like for instance,
What-
this one.
Slow down. They can come up with the practice.
Well, like,
They can be
can't,
punished.
like,
Is that what you
they
mean?
can Punished for
Yeah.
for this case, they couldn't get punished because they tried to make a law after.
Yeah, they targeted them in the law.
Okay.
The law was created with the intent to target them. There was a dude who he was Native American and he was smoking peyote. That's like the peace pipe, passing around the peace. So you'll fail a drug test if you take peyote. In other words. So he worked for a company. It was like a state, workers like Michigan Works that gets you a job, and he failed his drug test, lost his government job. Should he have lost his job?
Yes.
Yes, because who also couldn't smoke peyote?
Everyone else.
Everybody else.
Since it's already a law.
It was already a law for everybody else. It wasn't just because he was Native American that they banned peyote. It was already a law that nobody could smoke peyote. So it applied to everybody equally. That's a huge difference.
Was he like going to work on that stuff? Like,
The peyote? I don't know.
yeah.
If he was, that would be.
Yeah, that would be, that'd be good.
All right, last one for free exercise. This is one of your bold ones also, so just kind of making sure that you understand it. The Amish community. Yoder is an Amish name where after 8th grade, and I know there aren't a lot of Amish people around this community, but when I grew up, Claire is very Amish. There are a lot of Amish families. They rode our bus sometimes because some of them would go to like the developmental center if they had special needs. But once they hit 8th grade, they were done. The teachers, most of the time, the teachers were like 16-year-old girls. So
Wait,
Wisconsin, what?
Your teacher?
No.
No,
In the Amish schools, in the Amish schools. In Wisconsin, there was a law, like in Michigan, that required kids to go to school until they hit a certain age, 16. You had to, otherwise you would be punished, your parents, whatever. The Amish said that violated their free exercise because at 8th grade, they were done, and then they would get moved out to the field, woodworking, or, like I said with the girls, something different. So that doesn't violate their free exercise. What did the Supreme Court say?
They got you.
It did. Why? What is different about this situation than the polygamy?
The people have been believing it for a while now. The state just passed the law.
It's a part of the Amish had been doing this. They had been doing this. And then the state came up with a law. It wasn't to target the church, but there is a good reason for the Amish community. That's a religion. The Amish church is the religion. So they have a reason why, because it's a part of their religious teachings that at this point you go on and go to work. So it did not, when it was made, they were already practicing this. So they were allowed to continue it as well. The law that was for them did not carry on. Okay,
We got 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Let's pause it. We'll pick it up tomorrow.